All right, I'm First Class Rob Diehl with GoGuardReno.com. I'm coming to you live from my home studio today. I want to talk to you about the differences between the active Army, Army Reserve, and Army National Guard, specifically the Nevada Army National Guard. Now, all of those require that you qualify, all require the ASVAB or the military entrance test, and all of which require a physical and a time commitment. In the Nevada Army National Guard, we have 3 or 6 year contracts available. Now that is for 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, right here in Reno. About 90 days after you go through that process, you're gonna need to leave for about 4 months. That's basic training for 10 weeks and advanced individual training, the length of which depends on the job that you choose. Now, where we begin to be very different between active Army, Army Reserve, and Nevada Army National Guard is when you graduate advanced individual training. Active Army leaves and goes to a base. They spend the entirety of the length of their contract on a base. Army Reserve does return to whatever hometown, typically, that they decided to join and settle in 1 weekend a month. And Nevada Army National Guard goes home after basic and AIT, advanced individual training, back to the place where they joined. The big differences begin to present themselves for National Guardsmen. Now, when you're active duty, you have a federal mission. You live on a base, you eat, sleep, and breathe active Army concepts. In the Army Reserve, it's very similar to the National Guard in that you do 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, but you are attached to essentially the big Army. They're essentially a reserve component of active duty Army. National Guard, specifically Nevada Army National Guard, we are a Nevada function. We work for the governor of the state of Nevada first, and then we have a federal mission second. So state first, federal second. Now, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer in the Nevada Army National Guard, typically about 38 days per year is your commitment. But what do you do when you're not at National Guard drill? I mentioned in the beginning of my video that I'm in my home studio, so I do a lot of fun stuff. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I joined the National Guard right out of high school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. My dad was putting some pressure on me to make some decisions and have some goals and then work toward those goals quickly. Thank you, Dad. I love you. So I joined the National Guard right out of high school, did 6 years. It was fantastic. Got some civilian skill sets that I was able to take advantage of. I was in the IT industry for many years. And then I actually went to a wedding and saw a guy do a wedding DJ and MC show. And I was like, man, I could do that. I won't bore you guys, but I do have some performing in my family and some performing in my history, singing, live theater, musical theater, comedic theater, that sort of thing. So going and seeing a wedding DJ was something that really interested me. And so I'd been in the IT industry for many years at that point. And then I started doing karaoke on the side, started DJing on the side. And then I got into voiceovers for voicemail systems. I kind of bridged the gap on both sides. I did IT and telecom. And then I began putting voicemail systems in and voice recognition. And then I got to where I was recording all of their voicemail. It kind of morphed into its own thing, all while I was in the National Guard. Active duty Army, you leave home and you go to basic training and advanced individual training. When you graduate, you leave for an active duty base and you stay there for the entirety of your contract. You only come home or go on vacation when you take vacation. Army Reserves, you graduate basic and AIT. You do go back home and you do settle into a very similar 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. But instead of having a state mission, you are tied to the active duty Army. You essentially only have a federal mission. You wouldn't see the Army Reserve be mobilized for a natural disaster or national emergency. National Guard's primary mission is a state mission. Floods, fires. We help with the wildfires in California. We send helicopters out there to help with the firefighting. Recently, we had several Guard members that were on a COVID mission for over a year, helping with a lot of the local centers in Northern Nevada. So our first mission is to the governor of the state of Nevada. He is our commander-in-chief. So National Guard, state first, federal second, Army Reserve, federal mission only as a part-time component, and then active Army, a federal mission, okay? So it's very difficult, not to say that those on active duty Army don't have careers on the side, but their full-time job is to eat, sleep, and breathe active Army, and then pursue their civilian interests in their spare time, whatever that might be. On the Army Reserve side, again, very similar. They do have, a lot of them work in the civilian sector. Of course, they only do 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, so they still have to have a job, pay their bills, have a place to live. But then on the National Guard side, where we become very different is we have that state mission first, right? We all, for the most part, have civilian jobs and civilian interests and talents. And then we also have a federal mission where we could be mobilized or deployed overseas for a federal mission. So there you go. So I wanted to take just a moment again from my home studio and talk to you guys about some of the major differences between the active Army, the Army Reserve, and the Nevada Army National Guard. For more information about local careers, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, 38 days a year, please visit GoGuardReno.com. I'm all over social media at GoGuardReno.com, or give me a call, 775-350-9590. Thanks, guys.